Welcome guys. Now that we're in the fall season, it's a really good time to stay in, enjoy some time alone, to study, and to get better at what we really want to accomplish. If you're here, it's because you really want to understand how to do the first TOEFL writing question, which is the TOEFL Integrated section. So in this video, we're going to learn a few tips about how to be able to take notes effectively, how to make sure you don't waste time. You're also going to know exactly what you should take in your notes. You'll have a template to be able to do it well, and you're going to see a really good example of an integrated question to make sure that you're ready for when you take the exam. Winter is a good time to stay in and cuddle, but put me in summer and I'll be if you know, you know. If you're new here, I'm Reggie Scales, and I've helped hundreds of people already pass the TOEFL exam, either in person or here on YouTube, and they really appreciated the tips and tricks that they've learned here in the channel. So if you're new here, don't forget to like and subscribe, join the community, and share your experience with others as well. We're really dedicated here to helping you to get the best score possible, and that's what we want for you. So if you're ready, let's get started with learning how to answer the integrated writing section of the TOEFL exam. So to begin, let's start by looking at this template so you can really understand how to answer the question to begin with. In every TOEFL integrated section, there will be a writer and there will be a speaker. The writer and the speaker almost never agree on a subject. So you have the writer's opinion and he also gives his proof, and you have the speaker's opinion and he also gives his proof. This is not to give your answer. Our answers here do not matter. We're neutral. So we basically just say what the writer thinks and why he thinks so, and what the speaker thinks and why he thinks so. So as long as we make sure that we say that, we will be fine. We will be good. So let's check out this template to see how you can do the same in an easy way. So what I usually recommend to everyone is, in your writing test, make sure you put your introduction and put your conclusion at the beginning. If you do that, you don't have to worry about it. It's already done, and you can really focus on the body paragraphs, which really most of your score will come from. So let's check out the introduction and the conclusion, and you will see that it's not that difficult. Let's give it a look. So at the beginning of your explanation, you always want to mention what the topic is about. So if you see here, the article introduces the topic of whatever the topic is. More specifically, the writer discusses, and then we're going to talk about the writer's stance. Then we're going to go to the speaker side. The lecturer, however, in the listening passage disagrees. He believes, and then you're going to talk about whatever side the speaker's on, and then we're going to say, and he attacks each of the claims made in the reading. So that's a very simple introduction. You can do it in your own personal style, however you want. We just basically need to know what the writer thinks and what the speaker thinks. Now let's take a look at the conclusion. Let's give it a look. To sum up, both the writer and professor hold conflicting views about the topic. It's clear that they will have trouble finding common ground on this issue. Very simple intro and conclusion. I recommend practice your introduction and your conclusion so much that you don't have to think about it, that you can basically write it as fast as you possibly can in the exam, and you get that out the way, and you can spend the majority of the time on the 3 body paragraphs, which is the most important part. Okay, so now let's take a look at how to do the body paragraphs. And if you look at this easy to understand template, you see here, basically it's just reason 1, proof of the writer, and then you see reason 1, proof of the speaker. You're gonna do that same easy to understand template for all 3 body paragraphs. If you have both of those sections, you will get a good score, because that really shows that you understand what's going on. So let's take a look at the sample template just to see how you can do it too. Let's give it a look. In the reading, the author begins by stating reason 1, or his first point made to support his stance. And don't forget to give another sentence for proof. Then the lecturer, however, disagrees. He states that, and then you're going to mention the first counter argument by the professor. And then he goes on to say that, and we're going to mention his proof as well. So did that sound kind of simple to be able to do? Basically, again, it's the writer's reason and his proof, and the speaker's reason and his proof, and you're going to do that 3 times. Okay, so let's look at the reading passage just to see how this is done. All right, let's give it a look. So the first paragraph, just to be able to understand what the writer believes, let's take a look. The Salton Sea in California is actually a salty inland lake. The level of salt in the lake's water, what scientists call its salinity, has been increasing steadily for years because the lake's water is evaporating faster than it is being replaced by rainfall or rivers. If the trend continues, the lake's water will soon become so salty that the lake will be unable to support fish and bird populations. The lake would then become essentially a dead zone. Fortunately, there are several ways to reverse the trend that is threatening the lake's health. So what is the writer's opinion here? What does he support? Well, the writer thinks that there are several ways that they can reverse the trend of the lake's salinity, or basically salt in the lake. So he's gonna give you 3 possible ways to reverse what's going on. So if he's going to tell us 3 possible ways that they can reverse the salinity, well, likely the speaker will attack each of those possible solutions that the writer is giving. Understanding so far? An easy way to be able to save time, what I've seen, is that the first sentence of each paragraph is likely one of those potential solutions, or the first reason, the second reason, and the third reason that comes from the writer. So let's give it a look at those first sentences to see if he's going to give us 3 possible solutions to reverse the lake salinity. Let's give it a look. All right, first sentence. One option is direct removal of salt from the lake's water in special desalination facilities. That's the first possible solution. Let's look at the next paragraph and the first sentence. Another possible solution is to dilute the salt level in the lake with water from the ocean. That's the second one in the first sentence of the last paragraph. Yet another solution would be to control the lake salinity by constructing walls to divide the lake into several sections. Very easy to understand. Just so you know, when you're reading the passage, they only give you 3 minutes to be able to take notes here, and then you listen to the lecture. But don't worry, when you're actually typing your answer, this passage will come back and you can look at it for some extra hints or extra notes if you missed anything, okay? So in those 3 minutes, you have to get those 3 possible solutions from the writer, and if you have time, you can even go back to get the proof. If you don't have time to get it in those 3 minutes, it's okay, you can get the proof later. Then you're going to listen to the lecture and make sure that you have those 3 solutions, because those will be the 3 things that the speaker will attack. All right, does that make sense to you? Well, now let's listen to the listening section to see if you can find out the 3 ways that he attacks those 3 solutions. Okay, so now we need to understand the 3 reasons why the speaker doesn't agree with the writer's solutions. And to do that, let's listen to the audio and then we're going to fill in our template.
Now listen to part of a lecture on the topic you just read about.
It would be great if we could stop the lake's salt level from increasing and save its fish and bird populations. But the solutions you just read about aren't realistic or practical. First, sure, taking salt out of the lake by desalination would reduce salinity, but it would present some serious problems as well. For example, as you've read, water pumped into desalination facilities evaporates and leaves behind solid materials that were dissolved in the water. Well, the solid materials that desalination facilities leave behind would pose a health risk. The materials would be mostly salt, but they would also include other types of chemicals. Some of the chemicals would be toxic, like selenium. If the wind spread selenium and other chemicals into the air, and people breathe them in, that would be very dangerous to people's health. Second, the idea of bringing ocean water into the lake. Again, this would reduce salinity, but as you've read, it would require constructing pipelines or canals. The problem is that the local government may not have enough resources to pay for such major construction. The nearest shoreline of the Pacific Ocean is 100 kilometers away. Pipelines or canals are very expensive to build over such long distances. As for the third solution, dividing the lake into sections by building a system of walls, well, that's unlikely to work for very long. That's because the Salton Sea is located in a region that experiences frequent and sometimes intense geological activity, like earthquakes. That activity would almost certainly destroy the walls separating the different sections. So while this solution might work for a short while, the walls would likely collapse the first time there's a major earthquake, and water from the special sections with high salinity will mix back in with the low salinity water from the main section.
Summarize the points made in the lecture, being sure to explain how they cast doubt on the specific solutions proposed in the reading passage.
All right, guys, so how was your note taking? Let's take a look. So we already got from the writer that the first possible solution for removing the salt from the sea is direct removal of the salt from the lake's water. So what did the speaker say? Well, we got that the lecturer says that he actually agrees with that point, but he also highlights problems that go with that approach. And the problems with the approach are, if you evaporate too much water, you're going to leave solid materials, of course salt, but you're also going to leave a material called selenium. Selenium is toxic, which can also remain with the salt. So that's the problems with that solution. And what about the second possible solution that the writer said? Well, we see that the writer says that diluting the salt sea level with ocean water could be a potential solution. Well, about that, but we see that the speaker says that the local government may not have sufficient resources to be able to do such a big construction project. For example, the nearest shoreline is 100 kilometers away, so it might be extremely expensive to do such a large construction project. And what about the third possible solution of the writer? Well, he suggested dividing the lake into different sections with walls. And if you do that, then you can remove the salt in an easier way. Well, what did the speaker say? Well, about that point, the speaker says that this approach may not be sustainable. For example, maybe it will work for a little while, but the area where they plan to construct those walls experiences a lot of geological activity, like earthquakes. So if they set up those walls, well, they will just crumble down and the construction project will be for no reason. All right, now that we have our template, it should be very easy for us to be able to construct our TOEFL integrated section paper. We don't need the paragraphs anymore. We just have to use our notes. And if we do it like that with our notes, it's going to sound a lot more natural. We will notice that our points match. So I don't recommend going back to the paragraph to try to figure out how you're going to write it from that, because usually if you do that, it won't make a lot of sense. So with that in mind, let's take a look at our sample essay here and see how you can make your writing better. Let's start with our conclusion. We're going to see the writer's opinion, but we will also see the speaker's opinion. Let's give it a look. So for the writer, the article introduces the problem of the increasing salinity of the Salton Sea. More specifically, the writer discusses several ways to reverse this concerning trend. However, the lecturer in the listening passage disagrees, asserting that these solutions proposed by the author are neither realistic nor practical. And she critiques each of the claims made in the reading. All right, now let's check out our body paragraphs, and you're going to notice that all three body paragraphs are very similar. We're just going to have the writer's opinion and proof and the speaker's opinion and proof. Let's check out the first one. In the reading, the author begins by stating that one possible solution is the direct removal of salt from the lake's water. Salt water from the lake can be pumped into machines for evaporation, leaving the salt behind while the salt-free water is returned to the lake. Okay, now let's see the speaker's reason and his proof. Let's check it out. The lecturer agrees, but highlights problems associated with this approach. She states that the water's evaporation would leave solid materials that pose health risks, and adds that selenium, which is toxic, would also remain alongside the salt. All right, let's see the second body paragraph. First, the writer. Another possible solution mentioned by the author is diluting the lake's salt level with ocean water. Seawater is 20% less salty, so through the use of pipelines and canals, this liquid could help reduce the salt concentration. Now the speaker. Again, the lecturer points out flaws in the writer's argument. She insists that the local government may not have sufficient resources for such a construction project, since the nearest shoreline is 100 kilometers away, making it extremely expensive to build a pipeline over such long distances. All right, the third body paragraph, the writer. The final solution proposed by the author for lowering the Salton Sea salinity is controlling it by dividing the lake into different sections with walls. So let's check out the explanation. In the smaller areas, salinity could be prevented from increasing, while in the larger sections, it could be reduced by directing fresh water from rivers into the region. Now the professor? The professor in the listening passage doubts the feasibility of this plan. She suggests that this approach would not be sustainable, as the region where the Salton Sea is located experiences frequent and intense geological activity that would likely destroy the walls separating the water. And again, remember, geological activity are earthquakes. All right, now the conclusion, very simple. You can use this template for your own. In summary, both the writer and the professor hold conflicting views about reducing the salinity of of the Salton Sea. It's evident that they will face challenges in finding common ground on this issue. Okay guys, I really hope this explanation was useful to you. Now you're ready for the TOEFL integrated section of the writing exam. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me here in the comment section. If you have some sample writings or sample ideas that you want checked, put it in the comment section too. We're all here to help each other out. And if you like this advice, these tips that you heard in this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Take care.